Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marc Philpart. I'm the Executive Director of the California Black Freedom Fund, and I'm pleased to host this very special funder briefing and fundraiser for Where Is My Land? We'll have an intimate conversation today with Kavon Ward, the founder and CEO of Where Is My Land, as well as several members of impacted families who are seeking justice. I'm also going to say a little bit about the California Black Freedom Fund. As many of you know, the California Black Freedom Fund was established in 2020 during the height of the uprisings, and it was really established to be a one-of-a-kind initiative that was seeking to ensure that philanthropy didn't do what it normally did in times of crisis. What often happens when there is a crisis, when there is a murder, particularly of Black people, when there is a lynching, philanthropy will jump in and there'll be a wave of support. But then when the crisis abates and when the news cycles no longer are talking about the injustice, philanthropy will recede, and so will the support. And what we know is that there needs to be an institution that continues to keep philanthropy accountable and that keeps the investment sustained. And that is what the Freedom Fund was meant to do. Now, it's only a 5-year initiative, but it is really focused on raising and investing $100 million in Black power building. And there is no more important element of building power in our community and building wealth than the land that we possess. And so we're really happy to be partnering with Where Is My Land and the families that are here today to talk about how Where Is My Land is helping Black families in America reclaim stolen land through advocacy, research, and technology. Kavon Ward is the founder and CEO of Where Is My Land and is joining us for today's conversation. Thank you, Kavon, for your generosity and just the time that you take to be with us, but also the commitment that you express to our community and the families who you support. Kavon.
Thank you, Marc, and thank you for those beautiful words. Thank you for hosting this briefing. It is more appreciated than you realize. So as some of you might know, my name is Kavon Ward, and I started the movement to reclaim stolen Black land back in 2020, shortly after George Floyd was murdered. I started out with a local grassroots organization called Justice for Bruce's Beach, and its focus was to help the family reclaim stolen land and also get financial restitution for the violation of their civil and human rights and lost enterprise. And as most of you know, we worked very hard and diligently to help the family get that land back. And in 2021, Governor Newsom signed the bill SB 796, allowing for the transfer of the land back to the Bruce family. So for those of you who don't know, Charles and Willa Bruce bought 2 plots of land in Manhattan Beach when Manhattan Beach became Manhattan Beach. They were essentially co-founders of Manhattan Beach. And they started out with 1 plot of land. They started a very small business selling food, selling bathing suits, then earned enough money to purchase another plot of land right next to that plot of land, and then created this beachfront resort in a very white community. They were eventually threatened, harassed, not just by their white KKK neighbors, but also the city of Manhattan Beach and the police department. And then the city labeled the land a blight, took it through eminent domain, and then the Bruces were relegated to being cooks in someone else's kitchen. When I learned about that story in 2020, I wanted to do more than just educate people about what had happened to the Bruces, but I wanted to do something given my background in advocacy and my background as activist. I wanted to ensure that they got the land back. That was my goal. And so I did whatever I need to do to organize the community. I partnered with organizations like BLM. I testified before the Coastal Commission, before the City Council. I put pressure on the City Council to do something about giving the Bruces back their land. And that's when we learned that the city no longer owned the land and that it had been transferred from the city to the state, then from the state to the county. And so our saving grace was that the 2 plots of land the Bruces once owned was then owned by LA County. And LA County pushed Senator Bradford to create the legislation that would allow the bill to be transferred. But we did a lot of organizing around it. We had folks testify, we had folks rally and march for this, and it ultimately happened the commitment to give the land back happened within less than a year. And once the governor signed that bill in 2021, about 200 people reached out to me asking if I could help them advocate to get their land back. And these were families from across the country. And so I knew that with this local grassroots organization, we couldn't do it. We had to expand, we had to level up. And that's what we did. And we started Where Is My Land? We started in July of 2020. And we went from having about 250 claims back then to now having 700 submissions. And so, as you may not know, the number of submissions are growing faster than the number of dollars that we need to be able to scale up, get more help, and to help some of these families. But the good thing about most of the families on here, actually all the families on here, is that we are partners with them. We don't do everything for them. We advise them, and they do a lot of the advocating for themselves. And so that's the goal, is not to just do the work for the families, but engage with them, help them in any way we can, advocacy, use the media outlets and connections that we have to get their story out there and to amplify. So I want to make sure that the families get a chance to talk about their stories and to let you know why this work is so important. And so the first speaker is going to be Marian Johnson. She is a representative of a group about 250 families who had their land taken from them. The land used to be called Russel City. It is now Hayward City. 250 Black families were removed from that space. And Marian is leading a group called the Russell City Descendants for Restorative Justice. So Marian, I'm gonna let you go and just speak your truth.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, whatever they may be. My name is Marian Johnson, and I am a member of 2 families that resided in Russell City, which is now located in Hayward, California. My mother's side, the Patterson family, and my father's side, the Henry Johnson family. How this came for me, we heard about Bruce Beach, and we had always heard from our parents and our grandparents, if you ever have a chance to get our land that's located behind, it's a Toys R Us that's a couple blocks up from where they are. The land behind Toys R Us, go and get our land back. And it never really resonated for me other than, you lost the land or sold the land or whatever. It didn't mean anything until November the 17th of 2021, when the city of Hayward issued a formal apology to the residents of Russell City. And that's when it's like a bell went off. And we were like, my sister and brother and I, we always walk in the mornings at 5:30. We were like, this is real. What they were telling us to do is go get our land back. So I looked at Bruce Beach, and I saw that Where's My Land and Kavon Ward were people that I would need to contact to sort of get some advice on how you go about getting this started and finding out who you need to talk to and who you need to reach out to. So we reached out to Where's My Land. They responded, thankfully, and they were feet on the ground with us in terms of, letting us know how to organize our group, because it was, when I reached out to them, it was just for my family, but I felt it would not be right not to include the citizens and the residents of Russell City. So it was very inclusive on our part, our family's part, in terms of let's do the whole Russell City. And we did. And through her advice and instructions. We were able to get onto some media sites and newspaper articles and things like that. But our family, we lost our land by eminent domain. The city had an option to use federal funds or not. They chose not to use federal funds. What that meant for our family was this: they didn't have to give us any money. They didn't have to give anyone who lived in that city any money. They had to give money for land, but in terms of relocating us, no. So we got nothing for relocation. My mother's side of the family owned 2 plots of land. They lost that. On my father's side, my grandmother owned 6 lots altogether. And on those lots, she had built 3 additional homes after she purchased that land. And they gave her pennies on the dollar. She paid about, I think, $7,500 for it, and they gave her $2,000 after she had upgraded it and everything. And she had built those 3 homes for her 3 sons so they wouldn't have to pay a mortgage and they could raise their families and save their money, build some generational wealth. And for my grandfather, my great-grandfather on my mother's side, he was 64 years old when they did this to him. And at 64, he had 2 grandchildren, my mother and her brother. So he actually bought those lots for them because he knew he wouldn't be on them long. But he lost that, and he had to return to Oklahoma, where he was from. Their stories are this, because they were displaced several times by eminent domain in California. My grandmother on my father's side came from Freeport, Louisiana, moved to San Francisco. She was kicked out of there and by eminent domain, and she moved to Russell City, kicked out of there for eminent domain. On my mother's side, my great-grandfather moved to West Oakland, and eminent domain took their space to build a freeway, and they landed in Russell City. And as we know, they were pushed out and returned to Oklahoma. For my grandmother, I think for both families, that Russell City would have been their forever home, but we didn't have that opportunity. And it's such a great loss. And we hope to get that land back. That's what we want, our land back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that, Marian. And I just want to mention that there are multi-million-dollar companies now sitting on the land that was once owned by Marian Johnson's family and other families that were removed from Russell City. Next, I'm going to bring up Connie White and Milana Davis. They are representing Silas White. Connie White is the daughter of Silas White, who owned the Ebony Beach Club in Santa Monica, California. Connie and Milana, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kavon. My dad actually had a dream of providing a place for the community, his community. They have a place to go for enjoyment, relaxation, because at the time there was one little space relegated to the Black community. The white community named it the Inkwell. And that was the only place that we could go. And I remember my dad taking me there a lot, every Saturday, in fact. And we always had to leave after we went in the water. And I never understood why we had to leave. And I think that his dream began right then and there, saying, this shouldn't happen to us and it shouldn't happen to anyone else. So over the years, he began to start looking for a place that he could consider to be suitable and in the beach area for the community. And in the 50s, he found an old building at 1811 Ocean Avenue. It was an old Elks building. And when he did his research, he found out the building had been empty for 13 years. Nobody really wanted it. So my dad, of course, didn't have much money, so he was able to find some investors. And together they were able to purchase the building from Mr. Bennett Dorsey, who was a very, very nice advocate for my dad. Anyway, he hired an architect to drop the plans, and he's ready to go. And when he entered the permit process, the city of Santa Monica found out what he was doing, and they very quickly took him to court using eminent domain, took the land away from him, saying that they needed it for a parking lot for the new Civic Center of Santa Monica, which was not true and which never did become a parking lot either. My dad, in turn, took them to court, and he lost his case, and that was pretty much the end of it. And a lot of people in Santa Monica were really, really happy, and they were thrilled. And a lot of people never did know what happened, except that the club never happened. He had named it the Ebony Beach Club. And also he made it clear that the brown citizens of Santa Monica were also invited to become members because they lived side by side to the rest of us. But anyway, after that, it just became a very sad time for my family. We talked about it with much sadness for a long time. And then eventually we became silent. My dad's personality changed. He became an introvert, whereas before he had been a very, very extroverted person. And he seemed to have lost his motivation. And within a couple of years, he was only in his early 50s when all of this started. And then he became ill right after, I guess, the mid 50s, late 50s. And he ended up passing away in 1962. He also was so sad to see the building completely demolished in 1960, and that added to the sadness. Right after he passed away, it was just too much for my family. My mom sold the house that we lived in, moved to Los Angeles, and I left the area and went to San Francisco, where I attended San Francisco State University. And my cousin Milana has some very important information to add to what I've said. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Milana Davis, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to speak to you today. On behalf of the White family, I would like to state how absolutely appreciative we are of the Where Is My Land organization. They are at the forefront in the fight to repair the wrongs done to so many families, and the importance of what they are doing and the awareness they are bringing to these issues cannot be overstated. I didn't actually learn of my Uncle Silas's purchase of his property and his vision for the Ebony Beach Club and how it was ultimately taken away from him under the guise of eminent domain by the city of Santa Monica until I began hearing of Kavon Ward's work with the Bruce family. The potential for restitution for the Bruce family sparked a conversation with my cousin Connie and myself in regards to her father's unjustly seized property. Learning of the many ways that people of color were taken advantage of, denied legacies, and deprived of the ability to contribute to the fabric of this country is absolutely heartbreaking. Yet, Where Is My Land stands up time and again to support and help guide these families in their fight for restitution. We applaud them for their tenacity and their willingness to forge into fear territories with relentless determination. We hope that Kavon Ward and Where Is My Land are the catalyst that sparks the enlightenment of our country in its recognition of the necessity of and its ability to repair the harm that has been done to many citizens that suffered injustice at its hands. Kavon Ward not only recognized a need for justice, but also challenged the status quo to provide a solution. Where Is My Land fights for the citizens of this country who, despite forces that often worked against them, strove to become entrepreneurs and landowners intent on becoming threads in the fabric of this nation, only to be ripped from the quilt and trampled upon. When will our country acknowledge, gather, and actively place those discarded pieces back into the fold and repair the damage done? That is what Where Is My Land fights for. The recognition and repair of what was unjustly torn apart and discarded, so that we can all become part of a better, more complete, non-discriminatory nation. I've said it before, and I will say it again and continue in the hopes of its becoming a past dereliction. Where Is My Land is vastly undervalued and underfunded. The work they are doing is extremely important. They have made it their mission to see justice finally reach those it has eluded for so long. And we greatly admire all those who are involved in the Where's My Land organization and are extremely grateful for its existence. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Connie and Milana. So appreciated. I'd like to now invite our final family to give testimony, Beverly Moore and Kadija Phillips out of Richmond, California.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Beverly Moore, and I'm from Richmond, California, and I'm representing our family as well as my daughter. In 1956, our house burned down, and we started renting the property at 502 Enterprise. We rented the place from 1956 to 1980, and my mom always wanted to be a homeowner. So I bought it for her instead of buying a home for me and my two girls. The first home I bought was for my mother, and it was our pride and joy. The reason I bought it, it was a place for all of us to come, bring our kids, the community, and the people we knew so well. And in 1993, the city of Richmond came calling and said they needed it for drainage for the Richmond Parkway Freeway. From 1993 up until the present, it's a field. They tore down the home, and it was just a field, grass overrun, homeless people with tents out there, and we just don't understand. I saw, like everyone else, that Kavon Ward in Where's My Land helped the people of Bruce Beach get their land back. And I said, let me reach out to them. And I felt so privileged because I know it was hundreds of families reaching out, and they chose to help and guide us. And it really has made a difference because we didn't know what to do. They have helped with media outlet. We went to the University of Arizona and spoke to some lawyers and law students to try to get some help and try to get some direction. But we need assistance, and they can't just do it on their own. We need money, we need people, we need support, we need direction, and this is what we're asking for. So I appreciate Kavon, Tamiko, Michelle, the people that work for the organization, for everything they has done and continue to do for us. And we're just asking for some financial support, as well as if you know any lawyers or anybody that's willing to give us some direction and help us. We need our land back. We were deprived of generational wealth. My family, we all failed, but by the grace of God, I was able to get back up. But we don't have the place to gather at Big Mama's house anymore. And my mom became very depressed and ultimately was a recluse and died basically alone. So here's my daughter. She would like to add to that. This is Kadija Phillips.
Thank you, Mom. I'm Kadija Phillips, and just my observation as living as the next generation, it really drained our family, having our land taken through eminent domain. We continue to this day to ride around the neighborhood. It is just a staple within our lives to remember the garden, to remember the home. I was there very young before the home was taken, so I don't remember. I just remember the after effects, and it was very hard, and it has been very hard. We have just been so grateful. The guiding light has been finding Where Is My Land, the support, the resilience that everyone has, the knowledge, and ultimately just the support has been amazing. Being able to continue to connect us to the resources to navigate such a generationally impactful situation. I'm a mother of 3 as well. So there is legacy here. I feel honored to be a part of creating a legacy for our family, and just being able to teach my children as well to continue to fight for what is right, fight for justice, and ultimately finding those collaborations who will assist you, who will guide you, who will support you. So very grateful to Where Is My Land and Kavon Ward, and excited to continue to collaborate and find ways to move forward to getting our land back. And we are grateful for your time. Thank you.
Thank you all. A special thank you to Kavon for sharing about your important and impactful work in California. And just my deepest gratitude, appreciation, and respect to all of the family members, Marian, Connie, Milana, Kadija, and Beverly, for sharing your stories. We're now going to get into the Q&A, and one of the things that just occurred to me, and is likely something that all of you are wrestling with as well, is that when I last year went to Germany, and one of the things that I learned during my travel there for a fellowship was that when we study the Holocaust, one of the things that is often overlooked is how everything that Nazi Germany did at the time was legal. It was professionalized. It was done by lawyers and upheld in ways that really was buttressed by the socioeconomic system. And I can't help but think about the stories that the families have shared, and think about how the theft of their property was upheld in the courts by the legal system that we rely on for justice. And so just wanted to call that out, and again, express my appreciation to all of you who are joining today. James had asked a couple of questions, and we're going to turn to those first. James, thank you for participating, and thank you for your questions. One is for Kavon, with the request that you talk a little bit about the current funding and staffing capacity the organization has and what would help to provide more assistance going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question, James. So right now we currently have 4 lead positions filled, and we are looking to expand and hire regional advocacy and policy folks. Also, we need to hire an assistant. We need to hire a native network liaison, a couple of other positions we need to have filled, at least 10 of them. And we need 3.5 million on a smaller scale, just to get at least one individual in every region and for us to fully staff here at the home base. We also need to think about in this work how dangerous it is and how important security is, not just for my team, but for the families, especially when we start having activations specifically in the South. We need funds for security for that. We also need funds for the healing. A lot of our families come to us. They have been fighting for decades to get their land back, but to no avail. They have not had any help, and they finally have hope, but they are dealing with a lot emotionally and psychologically, not just from the harm that was caused to their family, but for the harm that's caused to them as they fight, as they fought to get their land back in the past. And so we are hoping to provide some type of sessions for healing for our families and for our staff, because it takes a lot of energy to keep people motivated and inspired to do this work despite them wanting to give up. And sometimes we want to give up. So those things are also important. We've sent over our case for funding support for Marc, and there's more specifics as it relates to what we need the funding for and exactly how much we need. So we can send that over to you when we're done with this.
Thank you, Kavon. The second question is for Marian. Marian, what was the city to use the land for that allowed them to use eminent domain?
Thank you, Marc, James, for the question. Eminent domain is normally used for taking property for public use. But the way the city of Hayward and the county of Alameda did it, they opted out of the federal funding, which allowed them to take the land from private citizens and sell it to private investors. They sold our land to Cabot and Forbes for $2.7 million. Then they took that money that they got from the sale and bought land to build a bigger jail to house more of us. Insult to injury. It was horrible. We find out more every day about what took place, and it was a conspiracy to take our land.
Thank you, Marian. I hope y'all are furious. I am, and it just goes to show how important this work is. And so while I'm upset and troubled by these stories, I'm also encouraged that people are fighting. There's a question from Molly. How have cities and counties been responsive to this work? Are they receptive, or does it feel bureaucratically challenging?
I feel like it's been bureaucratically challenging, and here's why. I think there are some cities like the city of Hayward who issue these apologies and these acknowledgements, but they don't back it up with anything of substance to repair the harm. And so they want to look like they're doing something, when in actuality, the only thing they're doing is providing performative things like a plaque or a statue. And those things are important, don't get me wrong, but it needs to be followed up with some true repair, like returning land. And if land can't be returned, then paying these people for stealing their land. And so we have some pseudo responsiveness, some people acting like they're responsive or going to do something to help with the healing. And then we find out that they're only doing it for press, right? So we don't have that blatant resistance in a lot of cases just yet. Most of the blatant resistance is in the South. But the resistance that we have is like, okay, we're gonna help. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting us know. We had no idea. We're gonna help. But then behind the scenes, trying to take down the organization and trying to further threaten the families and prevent them from fighting. I mean, it's happening to one of our families up in Crestline. So the resistance is definitely real. We understood that when we started this. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. And I think that the more vocal we are, the more resistance we'll get.
Yeah. Thank you, Kavon. And thank you for asking that question, Molly. It definitely feels like there's a lack of urgency. Dr. Ross, good to see you here. Thank you for joining us. This question is also for you, Kavon. Is there legal and research infrastructure support untapped but available through California or national law schools or pro bono law firm support? Of course, even tapping into this requires funding support for recruitment, training, et cetera. Kavon, I don't know if you remember, one of the first questions you asked me was, do I have trust in estate lawyers? And so yes. I would love for you to answer this.
Yeah, so thankfully we are in partnership with Loyola Law School. They've put on two briefings for us to help us get pro bono or contingency fee-based representation for our families. We're hoping to expand upon that, not just in California, but across the nation. We're hoping that serves as a model. And then they've also paid 3 or 4 of their students to provide legal research for our team to help us with some of our cases. We're going to be amplifying pretty soon within the Midwest and on the East Coast. So yes, we are open to that. We definitely need the help. So if folks know of other law schools that will be open to helping us with this, it will be greatly appreciated. Just hit us up.
Thank you, Kavon. I know there are a few more questions percolating in people's brains, but before we turn back to you, I want to ask a couple myself, if I can. One of the misconceptions is that people think there is some portion of the benefits that go to Where Is My Land when there is a win. Kavon, can you kind of explain how you get support and what your mix of support and funding looks like?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's a misconception that, we received funds from the Bruce family when they got their land back and sold it, but that is not true. We did not get anything. We were promised $1 million, but there was no follow through on that. So most of our funding comes from, philanthropic causes like Cow Wellness or Liberation Ventures or Decolonizing Wealth. We also have individuals donating to the cause. And a lot of it is me donating my resources and funds to the cause just to keep us afloat. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Kavon. I have a question for the families. Many of you remarked upon, offering your remarks that there were conversations internally that were sparked because of what you saw with Bruce's Beach that drew your attention to your own family's legacy and history. How did you find out about how land was stolen in your family? And I imagine that for every story we know, there are 10 that we don't know. What do you think is needed in order for more of these stories to be surfaced?
I can speak to that. I didn't know about this history in our family at all until I had a conversation with my cousin Connie when the Bruce's Beach issues became more known in the press. And she mentioned to me that her father had property in Santa Monica and his vision, and she told me of his vision for the Ebony Beach Club. And it was something that I had never heard about. And I lived with my Aunt Elizabeth for a number of years, Connie's mother, and she never talked about it. Connie never talked about it. I just didn't know until the Bruce's Beach family were going through their case. But that is where I feel it's so important that this stuff is brought to light and that there is press about it, because I am certain that there are a number of families who also don't talk about these things because it's an open wound and a source of pain where there seems to be absolutely no remedy. And when that is the case, people don't talk about it. So again, I'm really grateful to Kavon for seeing a need and addressing it and doing something and standing up and bringing it to light. And I just can't say enough how impressed I am with Where Is My Land and what they are doing. And it's definitely not an easy fight. And we are just really appreciative of them.
Can I speak to that as well?
Marian and then Beverly.
Thank you. It's very painful. The group that I work with, the citizens, the residents are in their late 70s, mid 80s, and it's so painful for them to even talk about it. We've had conversations, and one of the mother's elders, she actually fell out in our Zoom call, and it was traumatic for the whole group. We have a group of about 20 people. We meet twice a month, and these stories need to be told, but we have to be very careful and gentle with we call them super seniors, because they're zesty and they have vivid memories of what took place, the home burnings, the people coming through and dumping their garbage into their communities. It was, the things that they've told me are just unbelievable, and you have to be very careful for their mental health. But the stories still need to be told. And this platform has allowed these stories to be told, and more stories are coming out because people are hearing this part of American history. So thank you, Kavon.
I knew because I was the person that had bought the property. My daughters and I, we would always ride around the property, and Kadija and my other daughter that eventually became a Richmond police officer that is deceased would say, "Mom, why is the house next door still there? The house is behind us, the house across the street." And then it all became possible through Bruce Beach. We didn't even know we had any recourse to do anything. I went to the county, looked up all the specifics, contact Richmond City Council, mayor's office, and planning, and all the runarounds. They actually have our property up for sale. And they said we have to offer it to people, nonprofits, before you can have anything to do with it, whether you buy it or not. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. You took it under false pretenses. You're supposed to have been using it. You never used it. It's 30 years later, I mean, and you haven't used it. So what is the problem? So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Beverly, and thank you to all who replied in just answering those questions. I just want to ask one more, and I'm going to ask that we do brief responses. But what does success look like, and what would it mean for you and your family?
Well, I'm going to finish mine, if that's okay.
Please.
Basically, I would like my land back. We used to have a Moore's library at our house. We had the community garden. That's how my mother survived, with greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, pears, black eyed peas. This is, don't make me laugh, you guys, but it is funny. But it was so powerful. That is because she was on welfare. That's why I had to buy the home once I graduated from college. California State University, Fresno. And I'm gonna say one little last thing. I know you said brief, but one of my friends from college, he didn't know anything except for I came from Richmond. He hit the south side of Richmond and people directed him to 502 Enterprise. Everybody in Richmond knew where we lived. And I want my land back and my house built back on it. And I want support for Where's My Land, and ultimately support for us individuals too.
Thank you, Ms. Beverly. Ms. Connie?
I just wanted to mention also that I failed to mention before that after the original building was demolished, now stands a 4-star hotel, Vice Hotel. And they ended up taking the land that was my father's and adding to it. They've taken the whole block. And as I said, it's a very, very expensive hotel, one that I'm sure that none of us could afford to stay in.
Wow.
But I also wanted to add to Milana that I'm extremely appreciative of Kavon and also Where's My Land, and finding out about them and reading about them and contacting them and having the privilege of working with them and seeing their resources. And it was like a new birth, because it provided more motivation. And it also made me realize that I'm the only one in my whole family that knows about this or talks about it at all. And if it hadn't been for the organization, I just don't know where any of this would have gone, either for me or for any of the other families involved.
Ms. Marian?
For our group, for Russell City, we have a saying now: restore the land, repair the damage, repay the debt. I sit on the committee for the restorative justice project with the city of Hayward, and we're hoping to come up with some recommendations that will do exactly that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We're gonna have to keep moving, y'all. So much to unpack, so much to share and discuss. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Today we learned about the historical and important work of Where Is My Land and its impact on Black lives and families. Where Is My Land is seeking to repair the harm of slavery and racism in America, and is part of the Black liberation movement. We often don't understand all of the nefarious ways in which slavery and racism have co-conspired to really limit and challenge Black prosperity. But I think y'all have painted such a full portrait for us today that is no longer the case. We hope that as many of you are hearing about the victories of Bruce's Beach and other efforts like it, that you realize what it takes to win, what it takes to actually succeed, and you pour into the infrastructure that is necessary for us to get to those outcomes. And Where Is My Land is an essential and integral part of that infrastructure. They're organizing, they're building power, they're providing technical assistance and support to families and whole communities. And I can't thank them enough. Thank you, Kavon, for your vision, your tenacity, and your leadership. And I understand that since the victory of Bruce's Beach, you and your team have received hundreds of requests from Black families who need your support to regain their stolen land, not just in California, but across the country. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely, you're right, Mark. We have about 700 claims. We are only at this point able to work on about 10 of them very intimately and closely and provide advice and support to about 30 other ones. So we have a long way to go, which is why your investment is extremely important. And I just want to say thank you, Marc. Thank you for being a co-conspirator. Thank you for being, and I always say you're not my partner in crime, but you're my partner in good trouble. So thank you for being a partner in good trouble. I want to let my families know I'm so proud of you. And I want to thank you all for coming and speaking at this briefing. And I want to let y'all know that I am going to keep fighting for you and with you until the wheels fall off, until the money runs out. We will not stop. We will not stop. And so you shouldn't either. Thank you all.
We're not gonna let it come to that, Kavon. The wheels is gonna stay on. The car is gonna keep moving. This train is absolutely one that is picking up steam. And I want to thank all of you for joining today for this intimate conversation with Kavon and the families and Where Is My Land. The California Black Freedom Fund is committed to reparative justice and furthering a reparative democracy. We know that our democracy cannot be healthy unless it repairs the harms of the past. And so we are committed to that project in partnership with all of you and are working to ensure Black Californians are able to achieve some justice. And we just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us, for listening, for being present, and being committed to this project that we are all endeavoring upon together. Thank you for helping to ensure California is a just state and that our country is better for all of the work that needs to happen and for the generations to come. Thank you all. Thank you so much.